Hey, Shalom. This is Brother Howard of GMS Toronto, coming back with another one. Um, there's a good movie, and it's a cartoon. And these elites, they put a lot of truth in cartoons. And the reason why they do that is because they have to give you the truth, right? That's how truth works, right? It's a part of their law, a part of these Luciferians, these illuminated ones. A part of their law is to tell people the truth. Sometimes they do it in jest, right? Or in a joke, right? Sometimes they put it in a movie, right? They'll tell you about different things that are about to happen so they can say, see, we told you. Now, one of the things that they put in movies is who they are, right? I did a lesson on a commercial on the Geico caveman. I can't remember the name of that lesson right now. Something like our caveman around today, something like that. And that's them telling you, and when I say them, it's the so-called Caucasian, the so-called white man telling you that he knows that he goes back to the biblical Edomites, right? He knows that, right? He knows that he's a caveman. That's why he named himself a Caucasian, which means cave dweller. He knows that he goes back to South Georgia, Russia. He knows that he goes back to Mount Seir, right? And he knows that he was put in those caves in South Georgia, Russia as a prison sentence, right? Pursuant to Job 30, right? Job 30:1 lets you know. Also, Obadiah 1 explains who this man is as well. It exposes him, right? So there's no question today in 2023 as to who these so-called white people are. There's no question, right? Now, this movie came out in 2015 known as The Good Dinosaur. Really, really good movie. It's a cartoon, but it's really, really good, right? Why? Because it exposes who the modern day white man is and where he goes back to, right? For people that are quizzical or confused about the origins of the so-called white man. Because in this world that we live in, there's a whole bunch of different mindset as to who the white man is, and he was created in a lab, or he's a reptilian, and all of this madness that is not even sound doctrine. It's just mythical, you know? Just because this man is in power right now and you can't see a way on how you're going to take him out of power, you're going to name the man and tell him, oh, he's a reptilian, and, you know, he was created in a lab in Egypt, and so-called black people created him in a lab. No. Foolishness, man. All right. So, I'm going to put out a disclaimer to YouTube. This is just for knowledge, right? I'm not using this clip to make money. My channel is not monetized. This is strictly for knowledge and for a breakdown. That's all that this is for.
Yes, we need him. What is his name?
A name? I don't know.
And I will meditate on this. I name my keeper. Killer.
So let me kind of describe what's going on right now. So that little kid that's on the ground where the camera's focusing on right now, I wonder if I could big it up. Yeah, there you can see him. he's he's kind of a wild kid, right? He is wild, right? He's out here. He eats, animals. He eats bugs, like all the animals are afraid of him, right? Because he fears nothing. Like he's just a man of the wild, right? But the reason why is because he's an Edomite. He's fitting the characteristics of you Edomites, right? So this dinosaur who's lost from his family meets him, and this little kid, this Edomite, right? This Caucasian, this white child, so-called white child, likes the dinosaur and is protecting the dinosaur. So now they meet these animals, and that animal, I think what is he? I don't know what he is. Whatever that animal is. Whatever that animal is from back in the day. They have different names. What's it called? He's scared of what's out there in the wild, and he's just like, yo, I need that kid. So he meets this dinosaur, and he's just like, yo, if I name him, I keep him, right? Because the dinosaur doesn't know his name either, right? So the first name that this animal says is killer. He calls him a killer. Why? Because you so-called Caucasian people, you represent death and destruction, right? That's what you represent in the world, right? You don't represent good. Who represents good in the world? You so-called black people who are the biblical Israelites, right? Going from your respectable tribes, from Judah all the way down to Issachar. Okay? The northern tribes and the southern tribes. You represent good. You Caucasians, you represent bad. You represent death, right? You Israelites, you represent life. Okay, so let me rewind it just a little bit. So at 24, let's go to...
Killer.
Hold on.
Killer. Beast.
See that? The second one that he called him was a beast, right? Because that's what you Caucasians represent in the earth. You represent beasts, right? You're on a beastly level. Okay, let's get Job 30 real quick. This is Job 30:1. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Why? Because now you Edomites, right? You so-called white people, right? You so-called Caucasians, you're in rulership, right? And you have us in derision, okay? It says, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Why? Because you so-called Caucasians, you and the dog always had a very symbiotic relationship. So symbiotic that you actually would lay with dogs. How can we prove that?
Have you ever cheated before?
Not with another human.
What do you mean?
I cheated on my boyfriend with his dog.
Right? And this is supposed to be funny, but it's really not funny, because this is what Caucasian people do. They have such a symbiotic relationship with their dogs that it usually ends up to be sexual. It usually ends up to be sexual. Why? Because they sleep with their dogs, right? They lay with their dogs. They kiss their dogs in the mouth, to where they become infatuated with the dog, and they start to look at the dog in a sexual manner, right? This is verse 2. It says, yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former times, desolate and waste. That's why when you watch that movie, The Good Dinosaur, that child was desolate and waste, right? He was where? He was in the wilderness, right? Just trying to find meat here, find meat there, no shelter, right? They were desolate and they were waste. They didn't have anything. Okay. It says, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat, right? And when you look up mallows, right, or juniper roots, those things are actually very good. And it was actually something, those herbs actually sustained you Caucasians. And it sustained you in a way because remember, when you came out of the caves, you came out of the caves with a lot of diseases. So how did you survive those diseases? Because you were taking these herbs. And that's why when you finally started to integrate back with society, society got sick, right? That was the main reason for the Black Plague, right? In Europe, when you so-called Caucasians start coming out of the caves, right? You brought with you diseases, right? Is that not what you did to the so-called Native Americans when you came to Canada? Yes, it is, right? You brought diseases, you brought plagues with you, and the natives, the so-called natives, because they're Israelites, right? From the tribe of Gad, from the tribe of Reuben, right? From these different tribes, you brought with you diseases and you got them sick, right? And that's in your history book. Why? Because you were so filthy. You were so filthy, you Caucasians didn't even shower. You didn't even wash yourself, right? When the so-called natives used to speak to you, they used to put flowers by their nose because you stunk. You had such a stench that they had to put flowers by their nose because they couldn't even stand near you. You were that disgusting and despicable. Okay? When you were in the caves, you used to defecate and sleep where you defecated, right? You would eat out of your dead grandmother's skulls, right? You were filthy, man, right? You had lice, right? You had all manners of hair on your body. You had so much hair on your body that you look like a bear, right? That's where the whole concept of Sasquatch comes from, or Bigfoot. That was a representation of you Caucasians, right? That was a representation of you Caucasians. That's why in that movie, Harry and the Hendersons, that was a representation of a white man in his beastly state, right? That's why in the movie that I'm playing right now, it just called you a beast. Why? Because you are a beast. You are a beast, right? You were the first nation of people to regress so much to the state of a beast, right? In the Bible, it does call anyone who doesn't have the laws, statutes, and commandments a beast. But you Caucasians, you regressed to a beastly state when we put you in them caves. To a beastly state. You were walking on all fours. Okay, verse 5, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief to dwell in the clefts of the valleys, in caves of the earth and in the rocks, right? South Georgia, Russia. Why are you known as a Caucasian? Because Caucasian means cave dweller. Where did you dwell? You dwelled in the caves of South Georgia, Russia. Right? It says, among the bushes they brayed. What does bray mean? A horse brays. Brrr, right? Which means that you didn't even have a language. That's how much you regressed as a person. Okay? Verse 8. It says, among the bushes they brayed. Under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth, right? So you were that low. That's how low you so-called white people were. You were low. You were disgusting.
Murderer.
Murderer. Murderer. You are a murderer. Right? All you have to do is ask the so-called Native Americans about you. Right? There's a whole thing known as the Trail of Tears. You left a whole trail of tears. 77 million Native American, so-called Native Americans killed. And now we're still finding unmarked graves. So that number is even higher. Right? Millions and millions of so-called Native Americans who are the biblical Israelites as well. You killed them. You murdered them, sir. You're a murderer. I'm not even going into the so-called Negroes. I'm not going into them. I'm not even going into the so-called Latinos. You murdered them as well. You're a murderer. Let's get a scripture. This is John 8:44. It says, ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Okay? So what does he say? It says he was a murderer from the beginning. So this scripture is going into you Israelites who were acting like Esau. Right? Really Cain. Because who was the first murderer? Cain was the first murderer. Okay? He was the first murderer. He killed his brother Abel. This is Revelation 13:10. And this is one of the scriptures that got us so-called black Hebrew Israelites famous or infamous, right? Because you Caucasians, you don't like to hear this scripture because this scripture is about comeuppance, or it's about payback, right? Or revenge. Okay? But really and truly, it's about righteousness, right? This is righteousness in the eyes of the Lord. It says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword, right? So what did you so-called Caucasians bring to the world? You brought death and you brought destruction. You brought death and you brought destruction, right? And that cannot be debated. That's in your own history books.
Funeral planner?
Yo, the man said funeral planner, and guess who owns the majority of these funeral homes? Guess who owns the majority of these funeral homes? Which means that you're in the business of death. So if we were in a time of peace, would the Caucasians be in that business? No. What does that mean? That means they promote that business because they are in the business of death, meaning that they want death and destruction to happen because for them it represents monetary gain. You heard what the guy said? He said violence. Violence, man. That's what you Caucasians represent. You represent straight violence. Let me rewind that a little bit. See? And they ended up finding out that his name is Spot. Now let's get the word spot. Of course, right? We have to see what that means. This is the word spot from Edom Online. It's a noun. And it says moral stain. And that's exactly what That's exactly what you Caucasians represent. You represent a moral stain, right? It says, probably from Old English, splot, a spot, a blot, a patch of land, and partly from or related to Middle Dutch spotte, spot, speck. Other cognates are East Frisian, spot, speck, North Frisian, spot, speck, piece of ground, Old Norse, spotte, small piece, Norwegian, spot, spot, small piece of land. It is likely that some of these are borrowed from others, but the exact evolution now is impossible to trace. So what is the meaning of spot? Moral stain. But let's go deeper. Now this is the word mark in the Blue Letter Bible, right? Because Cain was given a mark, right? It was a mark that was set upon Cain, or what we just read, a spot. There was a spot, right? So it could be a spot as well. Okay. And this is the word mark in the Blue Letter.
Strong's H 226. Oath. Oath.
Okay. So that's how you pronounce it. And let's scroll down. It says Strong's definition, oath, probably from H225, in the sense of appearing a signal, literally or figuratively, as a flag, a beacon, a monument, a omen, prodigy, evidence, mark, miracle, right? Ensign, token, okay? It says sign, signal, a distinguishing mark, a banner, a remembrance, miraculous sign. Why was it miraculous? Because everybody on the planet Earth had pigmentation. And when I say pigmentation, I mean a dark pigmentation, right? A dark hue. Why? Because we're from the earth, right? The Most High created us from the dust, right? So we had a darkish hue, right? Because we were created from where? From the richest part of the soil known as humus, which is where you get human, right? Or man of color. Okay? So what was different about Cain? That leprosy that was put upon him, his color was taken away from him, meaning that you could see the blood show forth through his skin, which is what makes you so-called white people not white, but you're red. You're the red man. You're not the white man. You're the red man. You're the man of sin. Okay? You're the man with the spot. You're the man with the mark. That's you. That's you, sir. You're the killer. You're the murderer. You're the funeral planner. You're the beast. You're the lunatic. Because at the end, the guy said lunatic. That's you. That's you, you Edomites. You're the lunatics, man. Okay? So don't ever get it twisted, man. That's you, Edomites, man. You cannot get away from your heritage, man. No matter how you try to clean yourself up. No matter how much razors that you make, Gillette and all of this different, laser treatments to get all that hair off of your body. Okay? No matter how much nose jobs you do and, no matter how much times you go to the tanning salon and try to get dark, none of that matters, man. You're still the biblical Edomites. And if any of you Caucasian people, if you go back to Esau, then your future is going to be destruction. And with that, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakudash. Double honors unto the elders and elder apostles of GMS that rule well and that teach well. And to the brothers on the four corners of the earth doing this work in truth and in sincerity, shalom. Till next time. Kwame